How's it going? It's been a little while since I've done one of these. As an aside, we should get the first deck stage of the new set up pretty soon. I'm sure there's maybe a couple decks from the previous stuff, but I'll go over those as soon as I get a chance. Obviously, like I said, I've been very busy, been out of the country. But while I was gone, we had the World Championships. And we have the top six decks for it, as well as a player that I'm always interested to see what he puts together. He put his decks online, but there's only seven players I have the deck list for. The winner of the event was, of course, Alex Hancock's playing Wind and a Tricolor Warrior Light list. He actually, if you're interested in listening to me talk, you should definitely go read Alex Hancock's write up on the Warrior of Light list because it's really interesting how he came to play it because it wasn't actually the deck that he expected to play when he went to the event. I think everybody was kind of blindsided by seven cost Warrior of Light. I know that like when I read the card, it read like it was powerful, but I don't like running cards that like I thought would have an auto loss to Arcanist. Turns out, if you play Ice, Arcanist isn't actually a problem for you, which is something I didn't account for, as well as just the sheer speed at which Warrior of Light scales very quickly. So we have the Fire, Ice, Water. I mean, the real centerpiece of this is Gilgamesh FFBE, which, to be fair, I think this is a card that just kind of has been slept on for a long time. There have been lists that run the um, what's his name, Don Corneo, the starter one. That would you would do Don Corneo turn one, target himself on turn two to self mill 15 cards, and then just turn Gilgamesh on for the rest of the game, and you just run them down and hope your random mills weren't too bad. This just kind of gets to do that for free. The idea here is pretty simple. You can do Sarah FFL to go search for Warrior of Light and Warrior of Light, which is something I've known about thanks to playing Warriors of Light. So that's your turn one play. Then turn two, you go cast the Warrior of Light. You can ditch a Warrior of Light, or you can hold it in hand, and then you can mill. There's every single color in the deck. It's not very hard to find a way to get all the colors in. And just so happens that the two colors that this Warrior of Light doesn't cover is Ice Lightning, and Zeromus is one of the best three drops in the history of the game. So there's just a lot of like little micro synergies that are really, really nasty here. I do think it's interesting to see so many of these Warrior of Light lists on the Samurai and Scholar. Basically, it kind of means that like after the first Warrior of Light resolves, if you have to cast a second one, these become really, really bad hits. I'm a little more surprised to not just see like the Cascade backups or something like that in instead. But I suppose like the Crystal is useful for Cyan in particular, and Terra. Terra is a really good card. This list is really, really, really cool. I do also think there's maybe an argument that the summon package should be expanded. Like I get the idea is that like we're on a lot of three drops. Like the only whiffs are 3, 6, 9, and then two Lenas. The Lenas is weird to me just because I also feel like how are we supposed to get the special? If like she's a really warping card, she's fantastic and she's great with Refia, but she is a whiff. So I almost would rather see like one Lena and then like one Lunith, because I think Lunith paired with Ferris is just such a good late game payoff. And running two Lena doesn't like the special's not really going to be live very often for her. I just feel like there's a way to make this work that's not that without affecting our order. Castalian Empire Sid, I guess that hits Setzer and Terra. Those are two pretty solid options. Moody gets us to the Amaterasu. I've seen Rydia in these lists before as well. You can like run three summons of a different cost and then just like reveal them, foolish them out of the deck, and then get the other one. Like show Amaterasu and like I don't know, Cucullin. I'm really not sold on the Crystal Bahamut still. Like I know that like 2CP 9K is like a decent rate, but I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like a lot of the other Bahamuts in the game. Like even the one that you pay more, but you get to like distribute across two targets. Um, This Bahamut's just never really lined up very well for me. I even like the new one a lot, actually, the 5 CP, but like with a 2 discount if it's cast on your turn. Just because it deals with a lot of edge cases, cards like Rydia. Like this deck can like bounce or stack Rydia with Onion Knight and Refia. Speaking of, Onion Knight showing up as a really interesting tech that I didn't really expect. Turns out he's a Warrior of Light with Lightning that also just kind of floats. Did really well in a game. Uh, so it's definitely an interesting deck. It's one I want to actually play and give a shot. Like Warrior of Light just ends up accelerating the game state so much. Even if you just get 2 backups, turns out paying 7 for 2 backups and drawing 2 cards, like you end up on 3 backups with I think 3 cards in hand and a big 9K, is pretty decent. Um, the other deck that Alex took, which is of course the mono win list, and it looks really really good. A lot of little synergies I didn't realize until I started kind of playtesting mono win this set. Shinryu is also Izana. I know that we talked about like the Izana Chocobo loops, but you can do the same thing with Shinryu, and I actually really like when Shinryu isn't just Shinryu search Shinryu spend 6. He's also just a cast enabler if you have Chocobos in deck, which is really cool. Obviously, this is a Luso Turbo deck essentially, but even stuff like the 1 copy of Ishtola, this card is really really warping when she actually is good. Same for the 1 copy of Fina. I'm actually considering cutting Fina down to a fewer number of copies in my win decks, because I find that she actually tends to brick and there's no way to recover her. But this deck, thanks to the Moogle 11 package, the Chocomogs, Moogles, and the Azuras, is actually able to get Fina in a situation where she's actually good, and instead focus on the Luso control game plan when it's not. I think that's actually a really, really nice adjustment. I don't really know how good, like, I get the idea with Zidane, but I also wonder if you're in such an aggressive meta, how good is Zidane actually? And I know that, like, obviously if you watch the finals, Zidane won the game. But were other cards better in situations other than that? Because if you're drawing a lot of cards, like say we're playing against his first deck, Warrior of Light's not a great. I mean, this Warrior of Light's insane. Terra is like fine. Setzer's fine. Cyan is okay. Edge is like, yeah. Raffi is not very good. Onion Knight doesn't really do all that much. Like you kind of like start to see like there's not that many things you want to steal a lot of the time. Like Alfino, Zeromus, Ferris. Most of the backups are not amazing. Like it's nice to have backups to steal, but like especially stealing the Crystal Gen backups in Mono Wind where you're trying to curve backups quickly is not really that good. So I wonder if like this is if 3 copies of this Zidane isn't over indexing there. We shouldn't be running like just one more cast enabler. I like something like a Vaughn or a Nini in this slot. Maybe even a Riku. Kind of get the EX burst count up, although Riku isn't an EX burst that works with Shinryu. Obviously, we're on a ton of summons. That makes a lot of sense. We have 1 of each monster, and then our backups. The 3 Moogle 11, 1 Chocolate, 1 Chocobo for our Chocobo Sam package. 2 Norstal and 1 Stiltskin, and 3 Moogle 11. 2 Carpenter is kind of just becoming standard. Mono Wind doesn't want to make room for them, but it wants access to them. Makes a lot of sense. This deck is very, very, very strong for sure. I do also wonder. I guess the Shinryu helps a lot, but Yuzuki is showing up in a lot of lists right now, and Yuzuki does completely shut down Luso. Like the only outs are the Shinryu wipe or the Typhon. I guess the idea is that like you can Luso, or you can like Shinryu for Typhon or Shinryu board wipe if you get ahead, but I feel like decks like Megissa don't give you time to do that. So like that's the one like scary thing about playing Mono Wind right now is that because all of your damage is like damage based removal and there's very little bounce or other ways of removal outside of trying to run Typhon, but Typhon is kind of slow and scary in aggro metas because you're spending 3 CP to remove a forward, but like you're not progressing your own board state. I'm a little curious how that actually felt overall. Obviously, Alex Hincox is one of the best players in the world and probably the best mono win player in the history of the game. So major props was super fun to watch. And now we get ready for the glut of aggro that really took the event by storm. Um, I don't agree with a lot of people's opinions that are like, oh, because it was like best of one two deck thing, like everybody wanted to play aggro. At the end of the day, I think it was more a early Opus thing, as well as Japan kind of becoming a home for aggro decks in general. Like there were, I think, 4 Japanese players, and a lot of the testing obviously would have taken place in Japan. So I think a lot of the best players at this event just play a lot of aggro, and when you play a lot of aggro, you kind of Control doesn't have time to adapt to aggro this early into a new set. I think that had people realized how dominant aggro is, we'd see a lot more things like Cecil. Cecil 20 is like one of the best anti-aggro cards in the game, right? Because you can use it to tag in. You can block an attack with it, tag into 5-drop Cecil, protect your field, and kind of develop a board state while you're going. Warrior of Light plus Rosa basically deters aggro from ever functioning without finding some sort of removal. And a lot of mono ice does not have a way to deal with that. If you get to that board state, you just win against mono ice a lot of the time. However, it was by far the most represented deck of the event. Kind of people realized that Rufus plus Rug, or Rug plus Zidane, is essentially unanswerable. And if you would pull it off, you probably just win. So Hunter Nance came in second. His first deck was his signature mono fire Magissa. I'm not the biggest Magissa enthusiast. Hunter is probably the best Magissa player in the world. And this list is very interesting. We see the one Cyan come in, which as soon as I saw Cyan, I thought that it would I thought it would be a 3 of in Magissa lists, given how much it provides. You know, it gives the Magissa a board wipe. It gives it an engine that can ping Magissa. If you don't want to run through the Hedgehog Pies, it's self-protecting. It just kind of does a bit of everything. We're still on 1 Alfino, 2 Bosch. I think that's kind of interesting as well. I guess like there's not a situation where Bosch comes in where Alfino couldn't, so that's a little bit interesting to me. I would expect that to be like, in theory, especially in an aggro meta, Alfino might just be better because you're not damaging yourself to get there. The one copy of Ace obviously is very strong. We've seen this Ifrit come in quite a bit in Fire now to try to combat trick its way to a victory. Almost came up and won in the thing. The other thing that's interesting here is we do have the Tyvis engine as a secondary engine. There was a lot of speculation that Magissa could run Warrior of Light as a secondary engine. I mean, you look at the density of 3 costs. You know, Squall, Cyan, Ward, Ashtola, Bosch, Gutsko. You know, we're on just a very high density of 3 costs regardless. You could kind of, you know, fiddle with your backups a little bit, even running stuff like maybe even an Irvine. But I guess the cost was too high, but I still would think like the difference between 5 and 7 isn't that big. So I think that's a very interesting decision. You can, of course, get Ward. You could play Ward to ping your Magissa, which I think is actually really, really sick. Kind of just gives you another Magissa enabler. I'm a little surprised to not see one copy of Rain. I know Rain doesn't have an EX burst and can't be played off of Tyvis, but it is Ward with haste, and I feel like there are going to be situations where this deck is trying to go really fast, and that haste is going to matter, right? Yuzuki, I think, is a real all-star in these lists as well. A lot of ways to deal with aggro rushing you down is going to be damage-based, and Yuzuki just turns off all of it in this deck. Like, literally, if Yuzuki's on the field, none of this dies to damage-based removal, which I think is really, really solid as well. So, it's funny seeing Yuzuki become kind of a powerhouse, but she really is almost problematic with how effectively she shuts down damage to fire decks. It's ironic that Fire used to struggle with effects like this so much, and now, thanks to the fact that a lot of them are on Kuch Haspel, they're almost better at dealing with this than other decks would be. Obviously, this Ifrit's the free ping on Megissa to get your chains going. You've got the 3 copies on Tarasu, 3 of this Ifrit. Just a really strong deck all the way through. How are we getting Firion out? Oh, we're playing it off of Tyvis. That's right. Okay. That makes sense. Maybe I'm not a huge fan of this, although I get why it's there. Again, you're just looking for good warriors to deploy. But like between Yuzuki and Ward, I feel like we're not hurting that badly for warriors to play to the field. All right. And then we have our first example of mono ice. I hate this deck. um, I'm a little surprised to see Lufenian really take over. I mean, I guess it's a standard unit backup, and it is free the turn it comes down, but I don't know. I still feel like, I guess the idea is that like you're trying to win the game quickly, and if you do that, then just reducing your opponent's options is good enough. But also, like, a lot of times this deck would try to go first, and in those situations, I find Lufenian's best going second because then your opponent is playing their hand down, so they're like going to hold on to specific cards in their hand, and then Lufenian's more likely to snipe one. Sniping 1 out of 4, for instance, is a lot more powerful than sniping 1 out of 5, which is what happens if you go first with Lufenian. Similarly, like Unalesca is another card that like I think is kind of slow for like an aggro deck because you're paying 3 to pay 2, but I guess like Unalesca is strongest when you're ahead, and the curve in this deck is very even cost centered, so maybe it does do fine. Um, and then yeah, everything else here makes a lot of sense. The Zales can get you to the Rufus. You're really looking for Rufus Rug every chance you get it. I'm a little surprised to see Physalis because I think she's a little slow. Similarly, I don't know how much I love the Terra. I guess it gets you both of these Shivas, free cast 1, and then can hold the other or use it. But I feel like if we're running this Terra, we should be able to run like 1 less of this Shiva, make room for something else. I'm not sure what that something else is. Maybe like a Quistis as a backup to kind of dig for a card. Like I found that like I like cards like Quistis that like allow you to dig for more backups. Not for any other situation this one, but like if you have, say you go turn 1 Ezale, and then you can go like turn 2 Rufus Rug potentially. Well, you have cards in hand, but not like a great play. Tapping a backup, pitch a card, play Quistis is actually kind of nice. Um, yeah, I don't like these decks at all. Like they're really really strong, but it kind of just devolves into a race of like, can you establish Cecil Warrior of Light or like a similar payoff before Rufus Rug kills you? And a lot of the time the answer is going to be no. Um, yeah, Rug was just kind of a mistake, unfortunately. I really don't like this card. Laswell getting haste is crazy, obviously. Dolfree's a backup, force to discard. Vincent, you can actually attack with Vincent now and still get the freeze. Says Vincent says freeze 4 characters when he enters the field. And also, like, attack, like, that's really, really nasty. Rude and Reno are here because they're fast damage enablers. The only thing I will say is that if you can stabilize against this deck, the only form of removal is the Sistola. And I feel like the Sistola is not as good as people are thinking she is. I think 4 CP for this effect is actually quite expensive. Like, there's a lot of times where they're going to be all in, and it's going to be actually hard to get the Sistola onto the field for removal. So a lot of the removal is just dull freeze based, which is not going to be very good against a lot of cards. I think that like any deck that can needs to be on Cecil's, Rosa, Sage, Porum, Cucullin. A lot of cards are going to make this deck like absolutely feel miserable to play. And if you do stabilize into this, I think you're going to struggle to actually overcome those problems in this deck. Continuing on, we have Fire Lightning 13. Looks pretty standard. 3 Irvine is new. 2 Estinian. It's not too surprising to see Irvine come in here. I don't know how much. I mean, like the biggest thing is you need to run some number of purple cards, and Irvine's probably one of the best options you have access to. I'm a little surprised to not see Reeve in the backups. I've really, really liked seeing like the Reeve to go revive Lightning. Like I would almost consider Reeve a 3 of in this type of deck over like even like the Citaclan Gully. And especially in the discard meta, I think Reeve gets even better. Gestal, I think, is a really fantastic addition to 13. Lumina, obviously, is really good. We're on the size. We're not on forward size. I don't love that, admittedly. I think forward size gives you that critical mass of 13 forwards that you'd be kind of missing otherwise. I do like seeing 3/3 on Vanille. I think Vanille's like double Imperilga is one of the best board wipes in the game. Uh, and obviously, I really like the summon lineup here. Very simple but very strong. This looks really, really solid. Like I said, the only difference I'd probably like put the Sazas in the forward lineup and run like a Moody if I really wanted to be able to search Amaterasu when I get ahead. But admittedly, the forward lineup is kind of tight here as well. I don't know what I would cut to get the Sazas in, because then you also have to make room for dodge in the backups, which maybe should be on anyway, just given that you're on 3 lightnings and getting to a 113 backup actually helps Fang quite a bit. So, not too much to say. 13 is weaker than it was, partly because I think it probably doesn't do very well into a lot of the mono ice stuff that was going around, but it still races decks extremely well. So, love to sit down and play some games with some of the best 13 players and really see where this deck has ended up. I still think that there's maybe a chance that you might switch to playing Fire Ice 13 now over Fire Lightning. I know like Ishtola is a very, very strong reason to be on this, as well as the Hope. But there's a lot of ways in Ice to really make this work as well. Ice Water, Mono Ice by Will Kogel. This looks pretty much identical. We're not on the Terra. So we're on 3 of this Terra, which is just a good card. I don't think we have any Crystal Generation in this deck. Oh, we are. We're on the Knights. That's actually really good with the Shantoto. Shantoto also can proc the Terra, so you can get the thing, as does the Ishtola. I really like that tech, actually. That's really nasty. Vincent's also DFF. I feel like Vincent should be at 3, to be honest, here. Once again, we're on the 3 Lufenian. 2 Unalesca. I really don't like Unalesca in these lists. Again, I get that like it pairs really well with Weiss, but that's a different game than this rush down aggro stuff. I think Weiss is great because Weiss is like the best follow-up to a Rufus, but I feel like there's just a better thing we can be doing than Unalesca. Maybe I'm wrong. Like even like a Scholar almost, or like a Reaper, a card that just forces a discard on entry. Or the 2-drop guy that forces a discard on entry, right? Like, Unalesca doesn't help our scaling. So it's like, do we need repeatable discard when our opponent dies in 4 turns anyway? Probably not, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. Ice Water by Masayuki Yamada. This deck terrifies me. So first of all, Zidane is nuts when you pair it with Rug. Like all Zidane was missing was haste. Rug gives, and this allows you to basically make your Rug free for the first turn. It fixes a lot of the problems Zidane has with body size. Makes him a 6k first strike, which makes him a lot harder to block or deal with. Porum should be a very good mirror breaker, which is really nice. Unicorn, Cucullin. The fact we're on just 2 Larsa is hilarious to me. Sage is really nasty when you combine it with the Griever. Kind of makes sure like Rosa, Sage, and Griever. It's another package that just can kind of win the game. And this scales so well. Like every Sage you get down makes Griever even better. The Lakshmis, the Celestias. I think Sarah Mobius has been a criminally slept on card since she was printed. I'm very happy to see her getting her day in the sun here. This deck terrifies me. I think the only thing I might change is try to find room for like 2 copies of Vincent over, I don't know, go down like 1 copy of Rosa and like 1 copy of like Ishtola. Like I feel like a lot of our removal can be accomplished with the Griever. We should be able to like dull our opponent's stuff with Sarah and then Griever pop it if we have to. Also, Sarah with Sage and Rosa is really good. I didn't even put that together until now. This deck looks really nasty. This is kind of scary. We have a lot of card draw to make up for our lack of backup, so the fact we have to play out of our hand isn't that big of a deal. I did not put together how nasty Sarah, Rose, like that basically just says all auto abilities are turned off if Sarah lives the turn. And Sarah is very difficult to kill outside of exactly Ixion, which no one's playing Ixion because of the fact that Rug is such a problem. Like you have to deal with Rug, so you can't kill Sarah for less than 2. Looks like this deck's only weakness is going to be Ixion, but it doesn't even feel that good to Ixion kill Zidane because you're still eating the Rug, and they can just go with Zidane again next turn. Uh, I can see why this deck was, I think, undefeated in Swiss. Fire, Ice, Water. This is another one of the Warrior of Light piles. Not too much to say. We're not on Lena here, but we're on just the good 3-drop backups. I do wonder if, like, Loporrit or Astrologian wouldn't be better than the Paladin. Like I said, the crystals are nice for, like, Realm. No, Realm doesn't have a target to pull out with it. Lena can revive a 3-drop, but only revive a 3-drop, which, like, I don't know. I feel like a single 2-drop is probably still worth having in the deck. 3 Cyans. Cyan obviously gets a lot better with the crystals, as does the Edge. No summons, no monsters whatsoever. This is on, yeah, like 47 3 costs, which is wild. I think this deck looks really, really good. I'd maybe find something other than this Lena in this slot, but I'm not sure what. I get what they're going for with it. I love Sarah Mobius in this. Sarah Mobius plus the Cyan's really nasty. And yeah. We have a Mono Earth monster list. This is running the Go-Go Hippocampos package. Interestingly, it's not on 4-color Warrior of Light because the other deck is using it. So a lot of the like Leo shenanigans people are on don't really exist in this deck, which is a very interesting decision. We're on Shantoto. We're not on Tyros. We do need the Leo to color fix for Go-Go and Lark and the Hippo, but that's it. And Lark can revive Hippocampos as well. Gigas FFCC. No Ariman. I would have liked to have seen Ariman in here. I find that Ariman does a lot for these Mono Earth monster decks like this. Montleonis can revive the 1 Neo X Death. Ingus is fantastic, obviously. Mont can also revive Shinryu, which is really cool. Genova Synthesis. Okay, there's no world where 2 Mira is ever correct. That's like she's so good, and she's good in multiples. There's no way. I don't believe in this one. I think that's probably incorrect, like objectively. Uh, we're on 18 backups, and we're not on minor at all. What's our backups? Geomancer, Shinju. We're on Amber, Shinju. Amber could search herself on EX, but that feels really low impact. I'd rather be on minor and just like say I'll draw my backups. Claris gets Leo and Epitaph. No Kolkas whatsoever. I don't love that. Very strange. 3 Shantoto, we're really trying to play slow. Lumi, 2 Lumi Pumi. Is Mont character? No, it's Earth Forward. We're not on other Mira to revive Lumi Pumi, so we're paying 5 for this. Like I guess it's a hit off of Mira. I don't know. This is not my favorite Mono Earth monster list I've seen. We're a little low on animatable monsters, I think. We really don't get to push a lot of damage with our monsters. Mandragora, I think, seems like an exceptionally bad metagame call, given how few decks are actually on backups to begin with. Like, Gigas is, like, okay, but it's not amazing. Yeah, I don't love this list. I would be curious what this deck's record was. Like, Go-Go Hippo is really good, and it's also, like, unreactable, like, if Hippo's hanging around. But I feel like at that point, like if you've got Hippo Go-Go on the field, you probably won the game anyway. Like, hmm, I feel like we could have just been more efficient with our backups, not run the Amber Shinji or something. Been in a much better spot. We're also on only 2 Shinryu, which I've never loved. I guess like you can Shinryu for Genova Synthesis for a board wipe if you need one, but yeah, I'm not a fan. FF4 4-color Warrior of Light, Cecil plus Warrior of Light plus Rosa is maybe the best way to handle the aggro that was running around. One copy of Rydia. We're not like overly invested in it, but it's still good. Zidane's going to be there to help color fix. We do have the 3 Princess Goblins. I guess our Princess Sarah is our fire. If it's not the Tyro, we don't have a ton of wind either, so we need to be careful with that. Just where Zidane comes in helps with that a lot. 3 Cecil. Alexander's. I'd be curious how well the summon package lined up. Um, like Miss Dragon is not in a great spot right now. I would like that at 2. I would love Cucullin at 3. I'd love to see some Porums in the forward lineup to both empower the Rydia and the Cecil and to stop the aggro. Like go down like a copy of Fusoya for that. This is why the Kolka wasn't in the other list because we're using it here. And the Miner's in here. I don't like Miner in here at all. That's a weird one. Why are we on Miner? Like I know we're on Earth in both lists, but I don't know. That feels off to me. There's got to be another way of getting our colors moving. Like we have Verena, Goblin, Sarah, and you just have to draw any Earth backup at that point, and a water card to play the Verena to start. Like we can't run like Star Sybil or something as like an EX burst. We don't have Shantoto as a board wipe. Could have Shadow Lord as a board wipe. That's really bad against the current format, isn't it? Prish could be decent right now. Rugs. Prish kills Rufus with a discard. There's something here that's better than Miner. I think 16 backups with a Miner scares me. And it could be very easy for Miner, I think, to clog our backups. I feel like, meaning we have to like discard a card to force Miner to draw at certain points. Sarah for Princess Sarah is all we have there, so our Princess Goblin only searches. I guess Princess Goblin always can search Warrior of Light, which is good. I guess Sarah also gets Kolka. Okay. I sort of get where we are with this, but it's okay. Like I said, I'd really like to see the Porums hit the forward lineup. It's like the really big one that I'm seeing. I do agree with not having the Shantotos in this list, even without factoring in the Mono Earth here. I think that Shantoto is very slow for a deck like this sometimes. And really against the aggro decks right now anyway, I think you really want to go Cecil, Warrior of Light, Rosa to just auto-win them. I might swap one of these Roses for a Sage as well. We don't have that many reasons to be on Category 4 synergies. And I feel like the name diversity is more important. I like having 2 Rosa because the second Rosa... Like, Rosa's better, but not so much better that we go 3 Rosa, no Sage. Last 2 decks that I have in Top Cut, we have Ice Lightning and Cecil 4-element Warrior of Light. This is... Okay, so we have Galliv. The problem I have with Galliv is I think he's really poorly lined up against the current stuff. 1 Arc, 1 Darkness Manifest. I don't see that ever lining up. Like, this needs to be like a 2-3 lineup, and if you don't commit to 2-3, then you shouldn't be on this. Like, paying 9 for Arc is not where it's at. So, that to me feels a bit like a cope decision. One Furion, I've never hated that. Zidane, I don't like this card, but it's the only good Fire Wind card, which for 4 element decks actually matters because it helps color fix. Like you see, like our Fire and our Wind are our like weakest elements for like getting cards in. Zidane helps with that a lot. Bosch, obviously help us get our color fixing on. Garnet's extremely powerful. Rosa, we have the Rosa, Cecil, Warrior of Light. I like running 2 of this Cecil, but I recognize it's a little bit risky. That's just the Yu-Gi-Oh player in me saying don't draw your Garnets. But I also like running stuff like Loporit to put the other Cecils back in the deck. Fusoya, one Fusoya is fine. One Une, wouldn't mind seeing that go to 2, but we're not on like Rydia, which is where I find that like Une gets a lot of her value. Chocobo, 1 Kusith, 2 Mistdragon, 3 Amat, 1 Heck, 2 60p Levy. Yeah, we're kind of. I feel like this is a little bit. We can clean this up some. I feel like. Our backup engine. We're on Rydia Ico. Oh, I like that actually. Now you can go Rydia Ico, search Amaterasu and Ico, play the Ico, send the Arc to the break zone, and then when the Arc is ever good to play, you can crack the Ico, get back Arc. Arc now costs 4 essentially, but then you never draw the Arc. So the one Arc feels a lot better now. Now that I see the Ico in here, I still think it's a very bad draw, and we don't have a way to discard it for profit. But it makes a little more sense. We're on the Princess Goblin. We're not on the. I do like this as well. There's two different Icos. Like this gets Fire and Wind, which is nice. But the name clash here is really bad. Like I feel like you should just go one or the other. Um, hmm. Meath, like, there's another way to maybe get to the Arc, but like, I don't know. I don't really know how many multi-element cards we want to be discarding. We don't have that many of them in the deck. I like a lot of little things in this deck, but I think the bigger picture scares me a bit. Again, this is going to be, I think, okay into the aggro, especially if you can establish the Rosa, Galif, Rosa, Warrior of Light, Cecil, any of those combinations of cards. I just think it's going to be a little hard to get there. And I feel like it looks a little unfocused to me. Ice Lightning. Interesting seeing Shinryu show up in Ice Lightning. I would have thought that this would have been on Rug like every other kind of aggro-ish deck is. I like seeing just 2 Ishtola. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially if you run stuff like the Shantoto at 3, which they're on. 1 Cisne with President Shinra I think is really nice. Shinra gets the Rufus, it gets the Cisne as a backup engine. It's a nuts EX burst. Restrictor, Narrow, Weiss, Reeve to dig. 3 Unaleska as the only non-engine backup I think makes a lot of sense. Just one of the Shiva is nice. Shinryu Medine is pretty nasty when it comes up. I would have run the new 3-drop Odin. I know it goes like 1 smaller, but it's always cheaper and it hits monsters. You lose the EX burst, but like I don't like building towards EX. It's like building towards cards that I can make decisions and cast. Overall, though, this is really solid. Why are we not on Alcid and Zeromus? I feel like also Alcid Zeromus is really good into the aggro stuff because like it doesn't take that much. Then you can just dull freeze the Rufus and the Rug, and you probably just win, right? Like when you get to that point. Like I'm not like crazy there. Like that just wins the game if you like. Because then all you have to do is get 1 ice forward on the field every single turn, and you can freeze their guys. They'll never be able to block, and you kind of win. Like their removal isn't fast enough to kill you. That feels like a miss to me. What do we cut for that? Probably the Shinryus if it's me. Maybe some of the summons, like go to 2 Ixion. Maybe run a Chadley if we really wanted the 3rd Ixion over like the Reeve. Yeah, there's got to be something there. X Death is another one that like I feel like at 3 just never feels great. We could have found room for the third Alcid and the three Zeromus. There's no World Zeromus isn't one of the best cards in the format right now. The other decks list that we have access to, Matiski put his. Thanks to him for putting these on Twitter. So this is a Ice Water Warrior of Light list. He played a Earth Water Monsters at Australian Nationals instead. I like a lot of little synergies in here. Very easy to get Go-Go plus Hippocampus online with this deck. Warrior of Light does get the Hippo online pretty quickly. I would have liked to have seen Sarah instead. Or like, not in addition, but like Astrologian, Loporrit, Scholar, Time Mage. Lots of really good standard unit backups. The one Edward is just a discard hit off of Warrior of Light that develops backups. Empire Sid gets Terra and the Setzer, which I really like that like combination of cards. Reaper to force a discard. Go-Go plus Realm is really good. Just like there's so many good things that like Go-Go copies. Copying Realm is nasty. Copying Terra is actually really solid. You know, draw 2 cards. You can copy Biblos actually and get 2 discards on a party attack. That's really nasty. Copying X-Array is really good. You can just draw 4 cards and just refund the entirety of Warrior of Light's cost. So I like a lot of things in this list. It sounds like his Swiss friend, he was very unlucky with it, but maybe the only thing I'd look for is to see if there's a higher impact card than Reaper. I feel like the first effect on this isn't live often enough to be worth the thing. I get that it's multi-playable, but like I feel like there are a couple of Ice 3 drops if we're really looking for Ice there. Yeah, we're looking for Ice. We're so low on that. Let me take a quick look at the card database. Ice 3 forward go. Sort by oldest to newest to oldest. So we want like 3 of Ice. 3 of Ice card that we can cast that's going to do things. Even like a Lark actually seems decent there, because you're probably going to have to pitch monsters to play the Warrior of Light. Axstar. Axstar's kind of a bad hit, though, because we're on relatively few forwards. I'm curious. Gentiana would be funny, actually. I don't think she's great in the current format, but she'd be a decent one of. Yeah, we're getting into kind of the bad Ice cards here. One copy of the Lock Legend wouldn't be terrible. Thanks to like the Gestalian Empire Sid. I mean, other than Lock, never mind. We're not on 2 different Ice Category 6 backups, are we? Yeah, maybe that is the best. Because we're not playing Shulk. It's just a straight power crept version of Sarah, probably. So if you're looking for exactly discard off of it, that's probably your best bet. Ice forward. I'll take monsters as well. Cost 3. I don't hate Noctis either, to be honest. Just break a dull forward, but it's not a great hit because your opponent has to have something for it to be good. I almost like the Prish as much as anything else, to be honest. Oh, Vincent. Vincent's actually a pretty good hit there. Just lock your opponent out of the game while developing yourself. In a deck that goes kind of fast, that seems really solid. Wouldn't hate like White Tiger Lucy Nimbus if you want to like gamble. I don't know how many ways we probably can't deploy it any other way. No, we can't deploy Nimbus outside of that since we don't have like the Lenas. Yeah, I mean Lark wouldn't be bad either. You could hit that, draw a card if you had to discard a monster for it. But I sort of get the Reaper now. The more I'm reading it, I don't see anything that like really sticks out as like, oh, you should have been on this instead. If you're on exactly ice. Um, yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, we're not gonna like easily get to 3 crystals, so something like a Cloud of Darkness isn't gonna be that live very often. I don't think either. I think we want to use the crystals for Terra anyway. Maybe like 2/2, 2 Reaper, 2 Terra would be better because I think the Terra is a very good hit here. We don't have that many DFF characters, so Terra needs like the Scholar to actually do stuff. It's tricky. I like this list. I think it's pretty solid for sure. Um, and then this is kind of I think one of the coolest innovations, just period, has been the idea of Rydia not as like a engine piece, but as like as an engine piece, but not a build around. So like every single summon in this list up to here, Rydia can cast for free once per turn, which then procs Yuna to draw cards, run 17 summons. So Yuna should be drawing cards on both players' turns and be pretty difficult to remove. Une as well. We have 3 BFA as another summon. Like the only thing that we can't do is get through. Um, like we can kill Rydia with Ramu, but like anything else that doesn't take damage, we can't really break, which is a little scary. I might have made the fairy a unicorn instead. Unicorn kind of does a lot of what fairy does, just without the EX burst. And the EX is nice, don't get me wrong, but I like unicorn's like modal utility. But this deck is really, really cool. Titan to protect is another thing. Your opponent can try to kill your Yuna. Cast Titan, draw, really dig for like the BFA, the Rydia. Uh, Orin's a really nice one of. Porum's fantastic here. Garnet's great. Just so many good cards. I'm not sold on Claris into King of Concordia still as like a water backup engine, like Earth Water backup engine. But we burned a lot of water cards in our Go Go Wall list. Like we can't run Loporet, we can't run like Astrologian. So maybe that is just like the best thing we can be doing here. Really, really cool list regardless. Maybe I would be on like Lena over the King of Concordia. I think Lena is a really, really powerful card. You can go down on like the Ico and like to 2 Claris. Lena reviving like Porum or Orin seems really nice here. I really, really like this list. This is one of my favorite. Like, this list is really innovative. I think that BFA as like a repeatable summon with Kusith while drawing our entire deck with Yuna is. I wasn't sold on this deck the first time I saw it, but I think this is like the only deck that I've been okay seeing Yuna 5 in. So that's what I've got for the World Championship. We've been at it for a while with our deck review. It's always a lot of fun doing these. I'll have to go back and do a look at the 2 Nats I missed in EU and Australian Nationals. And then also, Deck Stage should be returning very, very soon. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.